Greetings, YouTubers, friends. So, as I mentioned in my previous video, I've been studying propaganda actually for a long time. I've watched, I think, all the Adam Curtis films, have I? I actually have a blog post where I give him advice about if he ever wants to get into Bucky Fuller, where to branch off Century of the Self to do that. So, I'm a big connoisseur of films. If you look at my blogs, there's lots of movie reviews. I'm really into media. I'm into media studies. And my World Game Museum, so called, which is kind of a meme, is all about looking back and doing some media analysis, really. Now, along those lines, a couple show and tell things. I'm about to go to OzCon, like even this evening. I could do early check in. I won't say I'm on staff, but I'm one of the people who's going to kind of have a special hoodie and talk up the treasure hunt and stuff. I'm also playing with the idea of not lugging a laptop at all the whole week and just spending more time looking over other people's shoulders. And, pair programming is supposed to be the thing. It's not all about just me, right? But I thought I might take to the green room just for conversational value. I thought I'd label it conversation piece and just put it there, right? This piece of the isotropic vector matrix, just have it sit there, maybe. Take it on the bus, take it on the max. I also wanted to. I have an agenda. There's something I do want to talk about, but I'm going to set it up a little bit. This is my uncle Bill Lightfoot's book, Beneath the Surface. He turned himself into an historian in his retirement, and he wrote this book on the history of submarine building in Seattle, Vancouver, i.e., the Pacific Northwest, between 1909 and 1918. So this is in the lead up to World War One. And there's some passages in here. I'm not going to dig them out and read them this time, where like the Admiralty is kind of skeptical. What could submarines even be good for? Why would we want them? Why do we need them? And one of the admirals says something like, I mean, they could be used to just torpedo civilian ships, but that would just be total barbarism, and we would never go there, right? Little did he know, right? And again, the thesis of that book, Human Smoke, which is about the period between the two world wars, was about really the descent of humanity with the advent of more powerful weaponry. We got more and more undisciplined in terms of who was the target. And now it's just civilians, right? It's fine to squeeze people with sanctions. Everyone gets to pay the price. It's like the people who have the weapons, they use everyone else as a backdrop, as kind of extras. The people, the masses. Never mind they have their own lives to lead. They all have to play second fiddle to the great heroes on the world stage, right? The great leaders, quote unquote, who see fit to like dictate, really. Tyranny is the issue in a way. So what I wanted to talk about in robotic behavior, I was I was having lunch with somebody from the Process Work Institute. That's Arne Mandela and company, based here in Portland, Oregon. Kind of Jungian in outlook. When I went to some of his classes, he was talking about Martian stuff a lot. I don't know where that was coming from, but it fit my Martian math trajectory. So it was pretty interesting to sit and watch him work. He works in the open as a group process a lot, but we were getting connected to people around the world and doing real time process work on a global basis. And it had, like, there were political and um, his techniques apply to social process, not just individual one on one therapy. Interesting guy. Not not a threatening guy, not a power hungry guy. Very kind of laid back and relaxed in a lot of ways. So I liked doing that. And I wanted to link his thinking to what Bucky called the cosmic computer. He has a chapter in Grunch of Giants says you can't fool the cosmic computer. And I think some people, they will read the Bucky stuff and they'll think, what a naive guy. Because in various places he talks about how in the future we're going to like feed all our data to computers and the computer is going to come back like the computer almost in the singular and tell us that, we could succeed as human beings. We don't need to go through hell and become, we don't need to destroy ourselves. We could make a success of ourselves. All the good, positive future stuff that he's known for. He says the computer will reveal this to us. And I think really he's just it's a trajectory. He's extrapolating how computers in his day and age, what they mean and how people are talking about them, giving them a lot of credibility. I mean, if you just handed somebody a computer printout, those white and green stripe things that already had the aura of authority around it, which we can kind of laugh at too. I mean, computers, was he really that naive? And because he called it the cosmic computer, I would say no. In other words, my approach to synergetics and to Fuller in general is you need to read like Love's Body by Norman O. Brown first, or one of these books that loosens you up to where you're thinking very metaphorically and very not literally. That's the whole point of Love's Body. That's what it's about. And when I met with Kiyoshi, that was one of his, he liked that book a lot. A lot of us did. I don't know if anyone reads it anymore. And in that sense, the cosmic computer, right? It's a deep archetypal sort of subconscious computer, and it represents all of our sort of, I would say, cell silicon synergy. It's all the YouTubes, it's all the machine learning, it's all the deep learning, it's all the everything. It's our whole integrated, sort of automated, semi-automated thinking that's kind of taken over, really, in terms of the internet and so on, as supplying a level of brain power that we didn't have before. So every time something political happens, it's processed now through a huge number of talking heads on YouTube. You can just imagine all those talking heads, and those are kind of like perceptrons in a deep learning matrix. They're pattern distilling and pattern discovering and gradually sorting through stuff in a vast parallel process that no one of us, no one person can really process all that. We have an intuitive sense, and Applewhite banked on that. He said to me once, I'm following all of this intuitively. And by following all of this, at the time he meant stuff like the Nobel Prize for Buckminster Fullerene. He was really into that. He was flying off to England and talking to crystallographers. Applewhite had a great amount of admiration for a crystallographer named Bernal, if I've pronounced it correctly. So that was I would say, one of his heroes in a way. And I think Bernal, kind of like Bohm, was kind of ostracized for maybe his leftist thinking or something like that. Kind of a pariah from the point of view of the right wingers, kind of like Linus Pauling was at Caltech. He was kind of marginalized. We don't remember this maybe, but when they came to round up the Japanese and send them off to camps, Linus Pauling tried to protect his friends, like hide them. Didn't work. They, found them and took them off, but he was not necessarily in step with his academic peers when it came to the camps. And I'm thinking a lot of that's going on right now, because I'm looking at the universities and the professors and the faculties. Like right now in Honduras, there's basically a siege going on between the martial law government, I'll call it, and students who still cling to the hope of becoming doctors and nurses and so on because their education was free. But now it's all about privatization. There's like not enough to go around. Like the Malthusians have taken over and want to deny all these medical students a future. In the meantime, everyone wants as many doctors and nurses as we can get because people have dreams in the North Americans are thinking about Medicare for all. And in their usual kind of dumb way, they think it's all about money or something. Like it doesn't have anything to do with do we even have that many doctors? Because if you're a doctor, you know about triage or a nurse. There are people you can help. There are people who are really kind of past help. You want to help the people that really need you the most. And sometimes those aren't the people who have any money or can pay you. Like if you help this person for 6 hours for free, you can save their life. If you help this other person for 6 hours, they're going to die anyway, but their insurance is going to reimburse you big time. So as a doctor, you're tortured because to pay back your medical loans, that you went into huge debt to become a doctor because it is privatized, and now you have to malpractice. You kind of have to because you have to pay back your loans. So you got to help the people who can pay you, not the people who you could probably best serve from a medical point of view. So all of doctoring and nursing, I think, is compromised by the system. And in the meantime, people in Honduras are trying to save, a more equitable way to help people bootstrap out of poverty into the medical professions. And they're like barricaded in right now because the government is not honoring that the university is kind of a private place. I mean, exempt from being invaded by troops. We saw this in Afghanistan too. Like the women's university there didn't necessarily want any help from NATO troops or anybody to come on campus and like protect them because as soon as you let the military on the campus from any side in an altercation, then you're immediately a target, right? As soon as any of the military players are allowed onto your campus, then you're the target of the other side as well. So trying to demilitarize a university can be difficult. And it sounds like I'm kind of rambling here, but I'm actually staying on the topic of the cosmic computer and that we're gradually putting the patterns together, the big patterns, and kind of realizing that it's either a global university or a global nut house. This is how I've always put it on the spectrum. It's like if we're healthy and sane, we can think of ourselves as a university. But if we just go crazy and run amok and just get into mass murder, which a lot of people would find reassuring because they think it's the other guy who's going to get the worst of it, so let's go for it. That's the nut house. And one of the measures is how militarized is your campus, right? And are the philosophers among us, if there are any, speaking out against the internment of Americans? And I call them Americans because they're from America, and there's always been a lot of Americans here. And the Europeans are coming over and like, hey, we got to impose our nation state thinking because that's how we're programmed. We're going to have borders, we're going to close them. It's like that was not a native ideology to like divide the world into fenced in patches, right? But it's like the Euro mindset feels it has an absolute right to determine the future of North America. It's always felt that. It's called manifest destiny, doctrine of discovery, and so on. But how much integrity does that really have? And I think we have a lot of talking heads. We have the computers working on that. The computer's working on a lot of questions right now. And Fuller had faith that we would think it through fast enough to save our own hides, but it was touch and go, he thought, and we were in our final exam period. And I think even with the internet and YouTube and all these talking heads and the cosmic computer almost overheating, trying to think it through and get the processing done, it's still touch and go. We're down to the wire here. And if we would choose to bring more of the Fuller stuff in, we should do that in the humanities, like I say, because you need to think metaphorically, which means giving more space for like unconscious or subconscious processing. If you don't think metaphorically and try to make it all strictly literal, it all turns to garbage pretty quickly, I think. Not just the Fuller stuff, but a lot of stuff. So keep it symbolic, metaphoric. We're in the humanities, we're in philosophy, and all hope is not lost. Talk to you soon.